Hey guys, I'm Darren Waldo from Where's Waldo Adventures, and I'm in several Facebook groups for full-time RVing and see a lot of common questions that I thought I could make a video on to answer how we did things when we became full-time RVers. So my wife and I actually had a really nice 1,700 square foot house in a nice subdivision, and at the time we thought we couldn't have kids after many years of infertility, and we'll be posting a video about that pretty soon and our updates on that. So we decided to look into tiny houses and RVs, and we ended up settling on an open range 370 RBS fifth wheel, and maybe we'll try to do a tour of that soon because we've been dragging our feet on doing that. So we sold our house in about 48 hours, and that's what we bought. And we had planned to move onto some land that my father-in-law owns. And while we were getting that lined up, we lived at our local KOA. And that wasn't really a long-term thing. We had planned on just spending maybe a couple months there because it was roughly $600 a month plus electricity. So we were spending about $750 to $850 a month, basically on rent. And our mortgage on our house had only been $800, so we were basically breaking even on that end of it. Our RV, we did finance it. We did throw down a huge down payment, but our payment on that's still about $300 a month. I want to give you guys as much information as I can and I feel comfortable doing. Some of it I may forget and leave out. Some of it I may feel like I don't really want to give information out on, but I'll try to do what I can with all of that. So we thought we could do the property that my father-in-law owns, but in the county that we lived in, we found out it was going to be really difficult to become full-timers, even way out in the county, like out in a very much rural farming community. They just have a lot of regulations there. So we ended up staying at the KOA for about 15 months while we looked for land in our area that we could live on. And we ended up buying just under 2 acres, about 1.95 acres, that you can see pictured here for $20,000. That might sound like a lot of money for 2 acres, but basically when we bought the property, it had $12,000 worth of gravel, 2 concrete foundations, a 100-foot well that we still haven't utilized yet that we're going to in the future. It was fairly level, and it was fenced in and had a really nice gate, kind of set up everything that we were kind of looking for. And it was also in a very desirable area for us, out in the country in a county that is not zoned. So pretty much whatever we wanted to do, we figured we'd be able to do it. So there were a lot of erosion issues on the property that I needed to fix as well. And so most of those have been taken care of. But the first thing that we did was start the process for getting septic. And the reason why I did this is because you need to have basically sign-offs or permissions from the county health department to get your electric hooked up, and I believe your water as well. So went up to the county courthouse, got the permits lined up for that, paid for their inspection to come out and find on our property the locations where we would be able to put in a septic system. I had no idea anything about that because where I had in mind on the property to put it, they were like, no, you can't, it won't work there. So all the tests passed on that. We found what would be the best location for our use of the property, and started contacting several different septic installation people in our area. But I kind of paused on that while I was waiting on some phone calls to get back. We had the permission to start the electrical stuff, so I called our local power company and was informed that we would need to have a permanent structure on the property in order to get our electrical service. I've kind of found out, I'm not sure if that's totally true though, what they told me, because I've seen other RVs in our area that have their power meters on a pole and there's no outbuildings on their property. So I'm not exactly sure what the difference was, or maybe the rules have changed since those other people have moved on there to when we had bought our property. So basically, I had a foundation on the property, and I built a 12-foot by 20-foot shed I took shop class in high school, but I've never had any experience in construction or framing or anything of that scope. Started doing that, kind of drew up a plan that I liked, found some stuff on the internet that I liked, modified a bunch of stuff, started on that process. Had a little bit of help from my dad and a couple other people, a friend from church, and some people like that. But really had no experience of doing that, and I did the bulk of the work with my wife helping me as well. So we spent roughly a little over $4,000 on getting that 12 foot by 20 foot shed built. 2 years later, roughly 2 years later, just under 2 years later, has not leaked. We've had no problems with it all. So I guess I did an okay job on it, but you don't want to hire me to build anything for you because I don't know if anything's plumb or square in the entire building. So once we had that building set up, then I contacted my local electrician, and he charged me about $1,500 to get all of the electrical stuff installed and ready to go to contact the power company. I've talked to some people, and they thought that was really expensive, but it's just really hard to get tradespeople right now. They can. I wish I would have become an electrician because there's so few people in that field right now that they can kind of charge whatever they think they need to. There's not much competition or availability. So spent the $1,500, got that done, had it inspected, contacted the power company. They hooked us up with power. They had to actually run power across our neighbor's front yard on the poles, so we had to get a release from them to be able to do that. And then they put two power poles on our property and then ran the power into the building. If I were going to change one thing about that, I would have tried to have done it underground, just because it kind of messes up our skyline of seeing the stars and stuff at night. And that might be something I modify in the future. But we got power, and I did 200 amp service, and I put a 50 amp plug on the front of the building. So once we got our RV set up there, basically I had to buy two extension cords, and that's how we get our power to our rig. Inside the building, I've put in a laundry room. I plumbed it out a little bit. There's no plumbing in the floor, so I've had to kind of do it on my own and go through the wall on the side. And some things I'm not really thrilled with, but it's working for now. We've got our own laundry service. It's really nice to have that. And then we don't have a storage unit anymore because I've built a building that's bigger than the storage unit we were renting. So everything that we own is now on the property. So after I got the electricity installed, the septic got installed roughly a little bit before that, and I've put on the little map there where you can see where it's at. So it cut across one of the little roads, so we don't have a loop around in the back of our property anymore, because the drain lines for the septic tank go across that, and there's a little hump. I do need to get some topsoil in just because it's kind of settled over the last year and a half, and so there are some low spots around it that I need to get taken care of. But it was a pretty easy process, quicker than I thought it would be as well. And then the next thing that we needed to do was to get water on our property. Had already started the permit process and paid to get a meter installed. So it was down by the road, and I paid the same guy that was our electrician to use his ditch witch to basically dig a trench from clear down by the road up to where my hydrant would be, to where I would put water into the RV. I think it was $120 for that. I bought PEX pipe, and I did all of the plumbing stuff myself. Once again, YouTube is your best friend on learning how to do these things, and then, of course, calling your dad who knows everything to get us some advice on all that. So with that, we had septic, we had power, and we had water. And we were hooked up and ready to rock and roll. Had the RV delivered, and there we were. Prior to moving on to the property and for the first little while, we used mobile hotspot for our internet. It wasn't real fast. I would say it was somewhat reliable because we never really had it cut out on us or anything like that, but it was expensive. We were spending $110 a month on that internet through the cell company. So found out that I could get DSL hardwire to the ground, so I called my local telephone company, had them come out, and that was super cheap too. And my bill has gone down to $50 a month, and we're about to be upgraded to fiber internet this spring, and I'm so excited for that to be able to have fast, reliable internet because I do run several security cameras, and I just like to be able to see what's going on my property in different areas, looking out just to make sure for security purposes. And I know that fiber internet is going to really increase my ability to do that. Um, but that was a great addition to be able to do that. They installed it in the building, and then for now, I've just got a phone line running into the RV, and then put my router inside my modem and my router stuff inside the RV. Um, the other thing that we did to kind of upgrade our living situation was I had a 250-gallon propane tank installed on the property through one of our local propane companies. They brought that out for us and installed that. I did switch to a different company for the second year, and I've saved a lot of money. The company I was using out of the bigger town, they kind of rip you off, and their customer service wasn't really that good. So I'm not really going to call them out on that. But we've saved a lot of money. I'm not running the Tractor Supply every week in the wintertime to fill up a 100-pound tank and two 20-pound tanks because we went through a lot of propane that first winter when we were at the KOA. Last year, I put up foam boards around the base of the entire RV. This year, I just kind of put plastic up around the back half where our bedroom's at, in the kitchen area. And we've only had the water freeze up a couple times, but it was not inside the RV. It was actually underground, where I'd put a valve in the ground to be able to shut off the water going into our building. And water had pulled in that area just from a lot of rain, and then that had frozen. So I've kind of fixed that problem as well. But yeah, so now we have a newborn as I'm making this, and we're going to be building a house hopefully this summer, waiting on the price of lumber to come down. We found a plan that we really like, a layout and everything. So having an unexpected blessing has kind of ramped up our schedule. We had planned on being full-time RVers for 5 years, and we're about halfway through that. So that's where we're at in our changes with that. But I thought this would be a good basic video to make for answering questions for some people. I see a lot of questions in Facebook groups I'm in. The big thing is it all depends on where you're at because there's going to be different regulations and zonings where you may live at. We're in Kentucky. I'm not going to say exactly where, but we're in Kentucky, and the county that we're in, like I said, is not zoned, and it's been super easy to be able to do whatever we felt we needed to do on our property. That could change by what state you're in or what county you're in, if it's incorporated and all that kind of stuff. I don't even know what all that stuff means, but some of that means, but that's the way that is. The other thing is just depending on how close you are to resources. If you're closer to a bigger city, I'm sure the cost of getting somebody to come out onto your property to do some of these installations would be cheaper. If you're way out in a remote area, it might cost quite a bit, I would imagine, and the price of materials. So I've talked to people that had their septic set up and it ran up to $10,000, and I felt at $4,000 I was fairly lucky to be able to get what we were getting. We haven't had any problems or anything, so it's been great. The only thing, as you can see on that overhead map, we have no trees on our property, so we've been planting trees, trying to get some shade. It's been super hot. So next summer, I'm going to have to get creative on creating some shade with some sun sails and things like that, shade sails, I should say, to try to create some shady spots so we can get outside and enjoy being outside without getting scorched. The other thing I'll say that I bought was maybe my best purchase is being a full-time RVer, you don't have a bathtub for the most part. I bought a $400 six-person Coleman hot tub, and that is a life changer. Of course, it's put away right now for the wintertime, but last summer that was a great addition to the property as well. So I'm going to release some videos, hopefully coming up very soon, maybe doing a little bit more in depth on some of the things that we've done, talking about our infertility issues and having a baby during COVID and all that kind of stuff. So if you like this video, if this was helpful to you, and you'd like to see some more, we'd love to have you all subscribe to our channel, to like it, to share it in any Facebook groups or any other kind of groups you're in, because other people might have these same questions and want them answered. So please feel free to do that, and maybe check out some of our other videos on this channel where we've traveled across the country several times and camped out in our Honda Element, which we won't be able to do that anymore, but we do appreciate it. Thank you very much.